All right, let's talk about a feeling I think we all know. You're working hard, maybe you even got a raise, but somehow you feel like you're just falling behind financially. It's like your money is just vanishing. So today, we're gonna figure out where it's really going.
I mean, seriously, have you ever had that moment? You look at your bank account, you know you got your paycheck, but by the end of the month, the numbers just don't seem to make any sense. Where did it all go?
Well, if you feel that way, you are definitely not alone. Let me introduce you to our friend Raccoon. He's got the same problem. He's just sitting there, totally confused because he got a raise, but his little pile of leaves, his savings, is actually getting smaller. And the weird part is, he's not splurging on luxury trash cans or anything, so what is going on?
Okay, let's dive into this. To solve the mystery of Raccoon's shrinking leaf pile, we've got to look at the numbers, because for him, right now, the math just isn't mathing.
And this is where it gets really weird, right? On one hand, his income went up by 3.8%. His boss even called it competitive. But on the other hand, his reality is that his leaf pile is shrinking. It's got to feel like the ground is just vanishing beneath his feet. And what he's about to discover is that the modern forest is basically designed to take his leaves one little bite at a time.
So, we looked into it, and what we found is pretty shocking. It's not that Raccoon is just bad with his leaves. Nope. It turns out he's stumbled into 6, let's call them hidden traps, that are kind of built right into the modern economy. Let's break them down one by one.
Okay, trap number 1. We'll call this the apple delivery trap. Picture this. Raccoon's had a long, hard day. He's exhausted. He doesn't want to go out scavenging again. So he pulls out his phone, opens up, Apple Eats or Trash Dash, and sees an apple for just 12 leaves. Seems like a pretty good deal, right? So convenient.
But here's the catch. That 12-leaf apple, it's already marked up anywhere from 15 to 30% compared to just going to the apple stand. And then you start tacking on all the fees. The delivery fee, the service fee, maybe a small order fee, and of course a tip. All of a sudden, that 12-leaf apple has magically become a 22-leaf apple before he even hits the order button.
Now you might think, what's the big deal? But if he does this just twice a week, that little convenience adds up to 1,560 leaves a year. And that's not money for food. That's what we're calling the tax of exhaustion. It's literally a tax you pay for being too tired to go get it yourself. All right, moving on to trap number 2, the shiny new Raccoon-mobile. So, our buddy Raccoon has been dreaming about this brand new car. It's gleaming, it has that new car smell. It seems like a solid purchase, a sign that he's doing well. But just look at this chart. The second he drives that shiny new car off the lot, poof, it loses 20% of its value. Just like that. After one single year, it's worth 30% less than what he paid for it. He's now underwater, meaning he owes the bank more leaves than the car is actually worth. And get this, to make things even crazier, some car companies are now charging a monthly subscription just to turn on the heated seats that are already physically in the car.
Okay, trap number 3. Remember the good old days when you just had one streaming service and it had pretty much everything? Yeah, those days are long gone. Now it feels like every single production company, every tree in the forest has its own streaming service. This is what's called the Great Apple Flix Reconstruction, and it is a massive trap.
And the reason it works so well is because of a little psychological trick called flat rate bias. See, our brains love a simple fixed monthly payment. It feels safe and predictable. So we sign up for all these services, maybe to watch one show, and then we just forget to cancel. The really smart raccoons, they rotate. They subscribe, binge watch The Great Trash Heist, and then cancel immediately.
All right, on to trap number 4. This one might surprise you. For as long as I can remember, fast food has been the cheap and easy option, right? Your go-to when you're on a budget. Well, I'm here to tell you that entire idea has been completely turned on its head.
Just look at this number. Since 2019, fast food prices have skyrocketed by 55%. Think about that. Raccoon is now paying what are basically sit-down restaurant prices for a combo meal that he eats in his car, and is made with ingredients that are designed to be cheap, not good for him. The crazy thing is, it's often cheaper, and for sure healthier, to just make your own food now. Trap number 5 is a sneaky one. We'll call it the Leave Now, Pay Later illusion. You've seen these services, right? They let Raccoon take a big purchase and split it into 4 easy interest-free payments. It feels great. It feels like you're spending less money. But that's the whole trick, because it lowers what psychologists call the pain of paying. People end up spending way more.
Studies show that when you use these services, you're likely to spend anywhere from 10 to 40% more than you would have if you paid all at once. Suddenly, that interest-free deal gets really expensive because it just tricked you into buying more stuff.
And that brings us to trap number 6, the final trap. And honestly, this one seems so small, so harmless. But believe me, this is the most expensive trap of them all.
It all starts with something so simple, a daily habit.
Maybe a premium acorn spice latte. It's only 6 leaves. I mean, what's 6 leaves? It's nothing.
While that little 6-leaf habit every day, over a year, that adds up to about 2,000 leaves. That's a pretty big pile of leaves just for coffee. But wait, that's not even the real cost.
The true cost is something called opportunity cost. What could that money have become? If Raccoon had just brewed his own coffee and invested that 2,000 leaf difference every year into a basic forest index fund, after 30 years, he'd have a staggering 245,000 leaves. He's literally drinking his future, one fancy coffee at a time.
So when you lay all these traps out, you start to wonder, why are they everywhere? Why are they so good at taking our leaves? And the really unsettling answer is, they're not accidents. They are designed on purpose, as part of what you could call an extraction economy.
And this is the key idea, so I really want you to let this one sink in. The system is not broken. It's actually working perfectly, just not for you. It's been optimized piece by piece by companies that have a duty to their shareholders to get as many leaves from you and from Raccoon as they possibly can.
And they use some really clever tactics to do it. There's something called slonism. That's the whole idea of making your perfectly good phone or your car feel old and out of fashion, so you'll want to upgrade. Or subscription inertia, where it's one click easy to sign up for something, but you have to solve a puzzle and call 3 different people just to cancel.
Okay, I know this all sounds kind of bleak, but here's the good news, the really good news. Once you see how the machine is built, you get to choose not to be a cog in it. The only way to win this game is to see the mechanism.
And it's actually a pretty simple 3-step process. Step 1, just see the mechanism. Acknowledge that the system is designed this way. Step 2, run the numbers. Do the math on your own habits, just like we did with that coffee. And step 3, once you see the true cost, you now have the power to consciously choose to opt out.
Look, this system is designed to work best when we're all tired and feeling alone. But the minute we start seeing these traps for what they are and talking about them, we can help each other sidestep them. It's about community. So think about it. What's one trap you're going to choose to opt out of, starting today? Because we have to remember, raccoons together, strong.
Hey everyone, welcome. Have you ever thought about buying a house and just felt completely lost? Like the whole process feels like a giant confusing mystery? Well, today we're going to demystify all of it. And we're going to do it by following the journey of one very determined raccoon on his quest for a home. It's a tale of finance, a whole lot of fees, and
Let's meet our hero. This is Raccoon. He's a pretty simple guy, you know. His dreams mostly involve shiny objects, maybe some leftover pizza, and the undeniable luxury of a really well-stocked trash can.
But lately, something's been stirring in his little raccoon heart. A new dream. Something bigger. So what on earth does Raccoon want? That's it. His very own home. A place to call his own. A sanctuary. Basically, a permanent, glorious trash can. A home sweet bin, you could say. But yeah, how does a regular, everyday raccoon even begin to make that happen? Okay, so Raccoon starts weighing his options. As he sees it, there are a few different paths that could lead him to his dream home. It's time to figure out which one to take.
All right, path number 1. Just, be incredibly rich. Yeah, unfortunately, his pile of shiny bottle caps doesn't quite count. Path 2, inherit the family burrow. Also not going to work. His parents are doing just fine, thank you very much. Which leaves him with only one real option. Path number 3, the mortgage.
And just like that, Raccoon's real adventure begins. He's decided to take the road most traveled to home ownership. A path that's paved with a ton of paperwork, visits to the bank, and so many numbers. So, what even is a mortgage? Let's break it down. It's basically a massive loan that a bank gives you for one specific purpose, buying a house. You get all the cash up front to buy the place, and then you spend the next couple of decades, usually 15 to 30 years, paying it all back in smaller chunks.
Now, you can't just walk into the Raccoon Bank and expect him to hand over a giant sack of cash. No. They need to be sure you're a safe bet. So they're going to check for 3 main things: a steady job, a good credit score, which just shows you're reliable with paying your debts, and of course that you've saved enough leaves for a deposit.
And how many leaves are we talking about here? Well, typically, a bank wants to see that you can pay for about 10 to 20% of the house's total price, right at the very beginning.
This chunk of change is called the deposit, or the down payment. Think of it as your skin in the game. It proves to the bank that you're serious and that you're financially responsible enough to take on this huge commitment. So if the house costs $1 million leaves, Raccoon needs to have at least $100,000 ready to go.
With his pre-approval from the bank clutched in his paw, Raccoon is finally ready for the exciting part, the great jungle house hunt. But he's about to find out that, it's a real jungle out there.
Man, he sees some rough places. Houses in terrible spots. Houses that look like they're one gust of wind away from collapsing. But then, after a long, exhausting search, he sees it. Glistening, perfectly curved, one of a kind. The perfect banana house.
But, there's a catch. He is not the only raccoon who wants this place. The market is fierce. It often comes down to this crazy bidding war, with raccoons just shouting out higher and higher offers until only one is left. It is intense.
Okay, so after winning the bid, Raccoon has another big choice to make. What kind of interest rate does he want? There are 2 main types. You've got your fixed rate. This one stays the same for the entire loan, predictable and steady, kind of like a raccoon's undying love for snacks. Then there's the adjustable rate. This one, well, it goes up and down with the market, a bit like a raccoon in an elevator. It can be a real roller coaster.
So Raccoon has the keys to his banana. He's over the moon, but just when he thinks he's finally crossed the finish line, bam, a giant mountain appears out of nowhere. A mountain made entirely of fees, all bundled together under one scary name: closing costs.
This part is so overwhelming, there's really only one way to process it. Raccoon calls up his buddy and says, "Trashy Kong, give me a beat." All right, here we go. You got the application fee just to see if you can pay. The appraisal fee is the house worth the leaves today. Inspection fee, making sure there's no termites in your space. The origination fee, that's the bank's little slice so the deal don't bust. And the credit report fee for checking your financial past. But hold on, because we ain't done. Title search, to make sure no old owner comes back for fun. Lawyer fees, for all the government deeds. Transfer tax, where the government takes a bite. Mortgage insurance, if your deposit was a little light. And all that together? Yeah, those are the closing costs, the very last fees before you get the keys. Wow, that is a lot of fees. But with all the papers finally signed and the fees paid, Raccoon is officially a homeowner. So, what's this new reality really like?
Well, let's start with the good stuff. The big pro of a mortgage is you can buy a home without having $1 million leaves just sitting in the bank. Every payment you make helps build up your credit score, which is great. Plus, the value of your banana house could actually go up over time, meaning you might make a profit if you sell. And hey, if things get a little tight, you can always rent out a room.
But there is a much darker side to all this. The word mortgage actually comes from Old French, and its literal translation is death pledge. A pledge that only ends when the loan is fully paid off, or, when you die.
So this death pledge, it's got some pretty serious downsides. For one, you're going to be in debt for a long time. And thanks to interest, you end up paying back way more money than the house was even worth in the first place. But the biggest risk of all, if for some reason you can't make your payments, the bank can take your house back.
Okay, so Raccoon gets it. It's a massive, risky commitment. But he's feeling brave, he's ready. He thinks to himself, okay, it's tough, but people do this all the time. How hard can it really be in today's housing market? So he decides to take a quick peek at the current situation.
And yep, that is a feeling I think a lot of us can probably relate to right now. The path to owning a home is a wild ride, for sure, but understanding how it works is the first most important step. So is the death pledge worth it for your own perfect banana house? Well, that's a question only you can answer. All right, let's picture something for a second. Imagine this simple world, right? It's full of raccoons, and the way they buy stuff, well, it's with leaves. And the one thing every raccoon wants more than anything, a perfect, shiny apple. Life's pretty great,
But, what happens when you're fresh out of leaves? That's the big question we're going to dig into. So this is the classic problem, isn't it? You spot that perfect apple, it's calling your name, but your pockets are totally empty, no leaves. So what's a hungry raccoon supposed to do? Just walk away and forget about it? Nah, not so fast. Turns out there's another option. And that option is something we're going to call the leaf card. Yep, I know, it sounds a little bit like magic. And honestly, it kinda is. This is the tool, the thing that helps you get from no leaves to delicious apple. Okay, so what is this leaf card exactly? It's actually pretty simple. Think of it like a promise. The Raccoon Bank gives you this little card, and it basically lets you borrow their leaves to go buy apples right now. So you get your snack, and then you've got about 30 days or so to scrounge up more leaves and pay the bank back. Simple as that.
But hold on, the Raccoon Bank doesn't just hand these cards out to any old raccoon. Nope. They've got to know that you're a reliable critter, someone who's actually going to pay them back. You have to prove you can be trusted with their leaves. So how do they even measure something like trust?
Well, they use this thing called a credit score. You can just think of it as your trust number. It's a score that basically tells the bank, hey, how likely is this raccoon to pay me back on time? And it's pretty straightforward. The higher your score, the more the bank trusts you. And the more they trust you, well, the more leaves they're probably willing to let you borrow. And you can see here, the Raccoon Bank kind of lumps these scores into different levels. Over on the far left, you've got the low scores, which they've charmingly labeled not worth eating. Yeah, that's not a good sign. But as your score gets better, you move over to the right into the good and very good zones. That's where you want to be. It shows you're a top-notch, trustworthy raccoon. So you might be thinking, why go through all this trouble? Why not just use my own leaves? And that's a fair question. But it turns out there are some really cool perks that come with this thing. Let's talk about the bright side. First off, using a leaf card the right way helps you build up that credit score, which is super important for bigger stuff down the line. Like getting a loan for a new den or maybe a tiny raccoon car. It's also way more secure. Think about it. If some shady character steals your card, they're stealing the bank's leaves, not your personal stash. You're also protected from getting scammed with fake apples. And on top of all that, there's one more massive reason. And that's the rewards. Okay, this is where it gets really fun. For every apple you buy, the bank might toss you some apple points. You can save those up for a stay at a fancy tree stump hotel, or maybe get apple miles for flights to visit family on the other side of the forest. And the really good cards, they can even get you free tickets to the coolest events in the woods. Okay, but every good story has a dark side, right? And the leaf card is no exception. If you're not paying attention, there's a really, really dangerous trap just waiting for you. So yeah, let's talk about the dark side. The big villain in this story has a name: compound interest. It works like this. If you don't pay the bank back everything you owe, they slap on an extra fee called interest. But here's the nasty trick, the real trap. They don't just charge you interest on the lease you first borrowed, oh no. They charge you interest on your new total, the original amount plus the interest. It's like a debt that starts eating itself to get bigger.
Let's just look at how fast this can get out of control. Say you borrow 100 leaves. Okay, after just 1 month if you haven't paid it back, a 2% interest rate means you now owe 102 leaves. Fine. But the next month they charge interest on the 102, so now you owe over 104 leaves. By the third month, it's more than 106. You can see how this tiny little snowball of debt can turn into a giant boulder rolling downhill right at you.
And it's not just the big monster of compound interest either. There are all these other little traps too. You've got setup fees, annual fees just for the privilege of having the card, late fees if you're even a day behind, and even ATM fees. They all pile on top of each other. Okay, so that all sounds pretty terrifying, right? But listen, it doesn't have to be a horror story. If you just follow a few simple rules, any raccoon, and I mean any raccoon, can totally master the leaf card and steer clear of all those traps. It really just comes down to being smart about it.
All right, here they are, the 5 golden rules for being a wise raccoon. Number 1, always check the APR so you know the real cost. 2, pick a card with rewards you're actually going to use. Don't get distracted by shiny things. 3, and this is the big one, folks, only, and I mean only, spend what you know for a fact you can pay back. 4, try to keep your spending to just 30% of your total limit. And number 5, the most important rule of all, always, always pay your bill in full. Every single month, no exceptions.
Let's zoom in on that 4th rule for a second, because it's a big deal.
As you can see on this chart, staying in that 30% slice, the safe zone, tells the raccoon bank that you're in control. You're not desperate for their leaves. And that's one of the best things you can do to keep your credit score high. Once you start creeping into that bigger danger zone, it's a red flag for them, and your score can start to drop.
You know, at the end of the day, this is all about being smart and helping each other out. This isn't something you have to figure out all on your own. It's about sharing what you learn so that everyone in the forest can do well. Because you know what they say, raccoons together strong.
So what's the bottom line here? The leaf card, it's not good and it's not evil. It's just a tool, a really powerful tool. And it can either help you build amazing things or it can get you into a whole lot of trouble. The only thing that decides what it's going to be is you. It's how you choose to use it. So the question is, for you, is it a tool or is it a trap? That choice is all yours.
Building wealth, it can feel super complicated, right? But what if I told you we could break it all down with a simple story? We're talking about a clever raccoon who just really, really loves apples. Yeah, you heard me. Let's dive in and see how this little guy explains, well, everything about investing.
So this is the big question, isn't it? How does one tiny little seed become a massive orchard? And look, this isn't really about farming. It's the core idea behind building any kind of real, long-term wealth. We're talking patience, growth, and that little bit of magic we call compounding. Okay, so let's meet our hero. He's a raccoon, and he's got a big goal. See, he's not just thinking about the apple he can eat today. No, he's dreaming bigger. He wants an endless supply of apples. And believe it or not, his little journey is going to teach us pretty much everything we need to know. All right, so this is where it all begins, the raccoon's big apple dream. He's got an apple right in front of him, but instead of just gobbling it down, he sees something more. He sees the potential locked inside those tiny seeds. And that, right there, is the first huge mindset shift we need to talk about. And boom, here it is, the core definition of investing. It's really just this, putting small amounts of something, like, say, apple seeds, away over time so you can get a lot more in the long run. It's taking a few dollars today, planting them, and letting them grow into something way, way bigger. Our raccoon isn't just thinking about lunch, he's building a whole future. Okay, now look at this. This is where things get really wild. This timeline shows you the incredible power of time. Year 1, he plants 1 tree. Big deal, right? But then you jump to year 10, and suddenly there's a small growth. Year 25, a thriving orchard. And then look at year 40, 1 million apple trees. That's not a typo. That's compounding in action. Each tree makes more apples, which have more seeds, which become more trees. It just snowballs. It's incredible.
All right, so if planting seeds is this amazing, why isn't everyone doing it? Good question, right? Well, it's because a lot of us are taught to do something totally different with our stuff. Let's get into what our little raccoon calls the sad leaves problem. And yeah, in this story, leaves are basically money.
So here's the core of it, saving versus investing. If our raccoon just hides his leaves in a bank, what happens? Nothing. They just sit there, they get lonely, they get sad, and they definitely don't grow. But when he uses those leaves to buy and plant apple seeds, now we're talking. He's putting his leaves to work. They're not just sitting there anymore. They're actively growing into more apples. But it's actually worse than just having lonely leaves. There's this invisible little monster called inflation. And what it does is it slowly eats away at the value of your leaves. So that big pile you saved, over time, it starts to buy you fewer and fewer apples. It's losing its power just by sitting there.
Let's put some numbers on this. Check out this chart. Let's say the price of apples goes up 3% a year. That's inflation. Now, if your leaves are just stuffed in a mattress, you're falling behind. You can't buy as much. But look at the raccoon's investment growth. It's 6%. He's not just treading water, he's beating inflation. He's actually getting richer. For real.
Okay, so our raccoon is sold. Planting seeds is way better than hoarding leaves. Got it. But now what? I mean, how exactly does he do it? Turns out there are a few different paths he can take through the woods, and picking the right one is super important. So he sees 2 main paths. First, there's active investing. This is the high-stress route. You're watching 30 hours of YouTube, you're reading reports till 6 a.m., you're trying to buy the dip. It's exhausting. Then there's the other path, passive investing. This is way more chill. You just automatically invest 10 leaves every single week, no matter what. Simple, consistent, stress-free. Totally different vibe.
So what are his options? What kind of seeds can he actually plant? Let's look at the raccoon's official investment tier list. Of course, at the very top, S tier, we've got actual apples, duh. But right below that, in A tier, look at this, index funds and ETFs. The note says low-key fire. I love that. Then you've got gold in B tier. It's cool, makes you feel like a pirate, but it doesn't really grow. And then crypto and real estate are a bit lower, maybe because they're a bit more unpredictable.
So our raccoon, he wants a simple life, right? He wants effective, he wants stress-free. So he's looking hard at that A-tier option. Let's dig into this low-key fire strategy and figure out why it's so powerful, especially if you're just starting to build your own orchard. I mean, you gotta love this quote. Index funds are low-key fire. It just nails it, doesn't it? It's not flashy, it's not some crazy get-rich-quick thing. It's just super effective, it's reliable, it just works. So what the heck is an index fund? Okay, imagine this. Instead of trying to pick the one best apple tree in the whole forest, which is super hard, what if you could just buy a little bag of seeds? And in that bag, you get a tiny piece of the top 500 apple companies. That's an index fund. You're instantly diversified. Boom. This donut chart here shows it perfectly. With just one move, you own a little slice of all these different companies. And why is that so important? Well, think about it. If one of those companies has a bad year, maybe their apples get worms or something, who cares? You've got 499 others that are probably doing great. You've spread out your risk, and you barely had to lift a finger. And this right here is the simple habit that makes the whole passive strategy work. It's called dollar cost averaging. All it means is our raccoon invests the same amount, let's say 10 leaves, every single week, period. Some weeks the seeds are expensive, so he gets a few less. Other weeks they're on sale, and he gets a bunch more. Over time, it all averages out, and he never has to stress about trying to time the market. He just keeps planting. Okay, so we've covered the why and the what. Now let's get to the good part, the how. This last section is all about the super simple, practical steps you can take to start building your very own orchard, just like our raccoon buddy. And seriously, it can be this easy. Step 1, find an investment app that's easy to use. Step 2, set up a weekly or monthly investment, whatever you're comfortable with. Step 3, and this is honestly the hardest part, just forget about it. Let it grow. Let time do its thing. But of course, there are a few things to watch out for. Common mistakes. First, don't invest money you might need tomorrow. This is long-term stuff. And remember, this is a 40-year plan, not a 40-day plan. So if the market has a bad week and things go down, don't panic. That just means seeds are on sale. And for the love of all that is holy, don't check your account every 5 minutes. It won't help. Patience is the name of the game. And just remember this, you're not doing this alone. There's a whole community out there of other raccoons who are on the exact same journey, following this simple path. We're all in this together. Raccoons together strong. So we end up right back where we started. But now the question is for you. A raccoon started with just one seed and a vision. He wasn't a genius. He didn't win the lottery. He was just consistent. So the only real question left is, what apple orchard will you grow?
Okay, let's talk about one of the most confusing topics out there, taxes. But don't worry, we're going to break it all down with a simple story about a raccoon, some apples, and a whole bunch of leaves.
You know that feeling, right? You work hard all week, you see that big, promising number on your payslip, but then the amount that actually lands in your bank account feels, well, a little smaller. It's a feeling pretty much everyone has, and there's a very good reason for it. So, to get to the bottom of this whole mystery, let's follow the adventures of our furry friend here, Raccoon. He's a hard worker at the local apple farm, and just like a lot of us, he's about to have his very first run-in with the wild world of finance.
So, our story kicks off as Raccoon wraps up a long week at the apple farm. He's feeling pretty good about himself, proud of all his work, and he's about to get paid for the very first time.
He's supposed to get 100 leaves. That's the currency in his jungle. But when he actually gets his pay, he counts it, and he only has 80. Wait, what? What happened to the other 20 leaves? This is the big question. Where did they go?
Well, those missing 20 leaves, that's something called a tax. And really, it's a mandatory payment that every single raccoon in the jungle has to give to the raccoon government. It's not optional, it's just one of the rules.
Okay, so the government takes some of the leaves. The next obvious question is, why? I mean, what are they even doing with everyone's hard-earned foliage?
The good news is, those taxes aren't just disappearing. They're being used to pay for all the stuff the whole community shares. You know, things like building new tree houses, running the hospitals, funding schools, paying the owl police force, launching acorn-based space programs, and even just keeping the jungle clean.
But here's where it gets a little more complex. It turns out the government doesn't just take leaves from your paycheck. Oh no. There are actually a bunch of different ways they collect these community funds. Let's break them down.
For our purposes, we're just going to focus on the 4 big ones that Raccoon is most likely to bump into. You've got income tax, sales tax, property tax, and this other one called capital gains tax. So here's what that actually looks like in a Raccoon's daily life. That income tax, that's the 20 leaves that vanished from his paycheck. Then, when he goes to buy an apple as a snack, an extra leaf gets added to the price. Yep, that's sales tax. And if he saves up enough leaves to buy his own awesome treehouse, he'll have to pay a yearly property tax on it.
All right, deep breaths. Now we're going to get into the one part that confuses pretty much everyone: tax brackets. I know it sounds super complicated, but I promise once you see how it works, it's all going to click.
So let's imagine Raccoon becomes an absolute superstar apple picker and starts earning 100,000 leaves a year. He hears on the news that he's in the 22% tax bracket. So how much tax does he actually pay? The answer seems obvious, but it's almost always wrong.
Most people think it works like this. You just take the whole 100,000 leaves and multiply it by 22%. That would be a massive 22,000 leaves in taxes. But that is not how it works. That is absolutely the wrong way.
So here's the big secret. Our tax system is progressive. You only pay a certain rate on each part of your income. So Raccoon pays 0% on his first 10,000 leaves. Then he pays 12% on the next chunk of 40,000 leaves. It's only on that final 50,000 that he pays the top rate of 22%.
And just look at the difference. By doing it the wrong way, he would have paid 22,000 leaves. But the right way, his total tax is only 15,800. That's over 6,000 leaves saved just by understanding how the system actually works. It's a total game changer.
Okay, so we're starting to understand the theory. But how does the government know exactly how much you owe? Well, that's where filing a tax return comes in. Now, when Raccoon files his return, he can claim things called deductions. Think of these as work-related costs, like maybe a special uniform for apple picking or some new climbing tools. These can actually lower the amount of his income that gets taxed. And if he's lucky and he paid a little too much tax during the year, he might even get some leaves back in a tax refund.
This all sounds fine and dandy, but the whole system really depends on everyone being honest and paying their fair share. So, what would happen if Raccoon just decided, you know what, I'd rather keep all 100 of my leaves and just didn't pay? Well, the Raccoon government does not take that lightly. It starts off with the warning letter. Then they start adding interest charges on top of what he owes. If he still doesn't pay, they can just forcibly take the leaves from him. And in the most serious cases, he could end up in the jungle's maximum security prison. Yikes. And who exactly are they? Well, every country has its own tax collection agency. In the USA, it's the IRS, which, well, we can imagine them as the Internal Revenue Silverback, a very powerful, very serious organization you do not want to mess with. Now, it's super important to remember that Raccoon's jungle isn't the only one out there. The rules for taxes can be wildly different depending on where you are in the world. I mean, just look at this. In places like Finland and Japan, the top tax rates are over 50%. But then you've got places like the Cayman Islands where the income tax rate is 0. This huge difference is why deciding where to live and work is one of the biggest financial choices an animal, or a person, can ever make. So after all of that, what's the big takeaway? Taxes can feel super overwhelming, but they don't have to be scary. The 2 best things any raccoon can do are, 1, make a clear budget to keep track of their leaves, or 2, if they're really confused, just hire a professional raccoon tax accountant to help them out. And that really leaves us with this one final thought. While pretty much nobody loves paying taxes, they are the leaves that build the bridges, staff the hospitals, and keep the entire jungle running for everyone. They're the financial proof of that classic saying, raccoons together strong.
All right, let's talk about something that can feel, super complicated. The 401k. But don't worry, we're going to break it all down and make it really simple. All by telling you a little story about a raccoon, his money, and a whole bunch of apples. But first, Let me ask you something. Does this sound familiar? You're working your tail off, you're trying to save, but when you look at your savings, it just feels like it's worth less than it was last year. Well, I'm here to tell you, you are not imagining things, and you are definitely not alone. So let's meet Corpo Raccoon. He's a good worker, right? He diligently saves his salary, which he gets paid in leaves, but he's noticed something kind of worrying. The pile of leaves he saved up last year buys way fewer apples today, and he's starting to think his savings are actually shrinking. And that gets us right to the heart of Corpo Raccoon's problem, which is, let's be honest, it's our problem too. He knows that just piling up his leaves in a regular old bank account isn't cutting it. So what's this invisible force that's making his hard-earned savings feel so much lighter? Well, it all comes down to a little thing called inflation. For our story, it's simple. It just means that over time, the exact same number of leaves gets you fewer and fewer apples. Your money, your leaves, they are losing their apple buying power. And this right here just lays the whole problem out perfectly. Look on the left. The number of leaves Corpo saves is staying the same year after year. But check out the right side. The value of those leaves, it's just plummeting. That same pile buys him fewer apples every single year. So just saving isn't enough. You're actually falling behind.
So is Corpo just stuck? Is he doomed to watch his savings turn into nothing? Well, turns out he heard a rumor at the Old Forest office about a special kind of account. It's not just a place to store your leaves, it's a place to grow them. It's called a 401k. Now, at its heart, it's a retirement savings plan that a lot of employers offer. But the key word, the absolute game changer here, is invests. See, unlike a bank account where your money just sits there, a 401k actually puts your money to work for you.
I love this way of putting it. Think of your regular savings account as like a reliable old family car. It gets you there. But a 401k, oh, that's a performance machine. It is built from the ground up for long-term growth. It's basically a savings account on steroids. Okay, so it's a sports car, but what's actually under the hood? What's the magic that makes it so darn powerful? Well, it really all boils down to two incredible benefits. We're going to call them tax magic and free apples. And trust me, both of these are designed to make your savings grow way, way faster than they ever could on their own. Let's break them down. Okay, first up, tax magic. Now, the technical term is tax deferral. Here's how it works. The leaves you put in and all the new leaves they grow over the years, you don't pay any taxes on them today. You only pay the tax collector way, way down the road when you retire. This lets your money grow bigger and faster without the government taking a slice every year. And look, that tax benefit is awesome. It's a huge deal, but it is not even the most powerful feature. No way. There is something else that puts the 401k in a whole other league. Just imagine this for a second. What if, for every single apple you decided to save for your future, someone just walked up and gave you another apple, completely free? Sounds a little too good to be true, doesn't it? Well, guess what? It's not. It's real, and it's called an employer match. This is where your company literally gives you free money, free leaves, free apples, just because you're contributing to your own retirement. I'm telling you, it is the closest thing to a free lunch in the entire world of finance. Okay, so you're sold. Tax magic, free apples, sign me up. So how does Corpo Raccoon actually get started with all this? The really good news is the whole thing is designed to be incredibly simple. Seriously, it's just 3 steps. First, you enroll. It's usually just a form. Second, you pick a percentage of your paychecks to contribute automatically. Let's say 10%. And third, you do nothing. You just let it run. It's all on autopilot, taking those leaves out and investing them before you can even think about it. Now, before we get too carried away planning our apple-filled future, we have to talk about the catch. And you really, really need to hear this, because it's a big one. The whole system is built around one very strict rule, because this whole thing is for one purpose: your retirement. So, here it is, the number you have to remember, 59.5. That is the age you generally have to be before you can start taking your apples out of the account without getting in a whole lot of trouble. And what kind of trouble are we talking about? Oh, just a massive 10% penalty. And that's on top of the normal income taxes you'd already owe. Yeah, it is designed to be painful. The message they're sending is crystal clear. Do not touch this money until you retire. So given that giant restriction, it's a fair question to ask. Is this the right tool for every single raccoon out there? Because while it's incredibly powerful, the 401k is definitely not a perfect fit for everyone's financial life. Look, a 401k is absolutely fantastic for raccoons who are patient, who are playing the long game. It's great for building financial discipline. But if you think you might need that money soon for an emergency or maybe a down payment, those huge penalties make it a really bad choice. You also got to watch out for plans that have super high fees or not so great investment options. And just two last super important details to keep in mind. First, those free apples that employer match, well, they might have something called a vesting schedule, which means you have to work there for a few years before that money is 100% yours. And second, please remember, this is an investment. The value is going to go up and it's going to go down with the market. Which brings us to this absolutely perfect summary from, the master himself, Warren Buffett. A 401k is a tool built for the patient. It rewards consistency and discipline over decades, not days. It basically forces you to be that patient investor. So as we wrap this up, the question really isn't about different accounts and complicated rules. It's about what you're planting today for your future. Are you going to let inflation slowly shrink your savings? Or are you planting the seeds for a thriving orchard that you can enjoy for years and years to come? All right, let's talk about something that financial experts get really excited about. One of the most powerful tools out there for building wealth, the Roth IRA. And to really get what makes it so special, we're going to get a little help from a very smart friend of ours. So, meet our hero for today, Smart Raccoon. Now, Smart Raccoon absolutely loves apples. But, he's getting wise in his ears and knows he's not going to be able to scramble up those trees forever. He needs a solid retirement plan, one that guarantees his golden years are just full of delicious apples. So how does a clever raccoon like him make that happen? Well, here's the problem. In this forest, the main currency is leaves. So Smart Raccoon has to save up his leaves now if he wants to trade them for apples later. But come on, just shoving them under a rock somewhere, that's not going to work. He needs a real strategy. Luckily, the wisest creatures in the forest, they've got a solution. It's a special tool they call the Magic Savings Log. For us humans, we call it the Roth IRA. And trust me, this isn't just some old hollow log. It has some seriously magical properties for making your savings grow. So what exactly is this magic log? Think of it like this. It's a special retirement account where you put in money after you've already paid taxes on it. These are your pre-washed leaves. Then you let those leaves grow and grow over time. And here's the kicker. When you're ready to retire, you can pull everything out completely tax-free. That's right. The government owl, the IRS, doesn't get to take a single bite. Not one. Now, of course, there are a few rules to this magic. For 2025, most raccoons can stash away up to 7,000 leaves a year in their log. And for you more seasoned raccoons out there, 50 and over, you get a little bonus. You can put in up to 8,000 leaves. It's what they call a catch-up contribution, a little extra help to beef up that retirement stash. Okay, but this is where the real magic kicks in. It's not just about saving a pile of leaves. It's about how those leaves transform into a giant feast of future apples. This is all about the power of tax-free growth, and you're about to see just how incredibly powerful it can be. Just look at these numbers. Let's say our smart raccoon saves 5,000 leaves every year for 20 years. Okay, so that's 100,000 leaves that he put in himself. That's that first bar. But thanks to the magic of compounding, his log could turn out an extra 119,000 leaves all on its own. That's the second bar. That is pure growth, bringing his grand total to 219,000 leaves. And here it is, the most important part of this whole thing. That 119,000 in growth, it is 100% completely tax-free when he takes it out in retirement. That is the absolute superpower of the Roth IRA. All that extra money, all that growth is his to keep. So yeah, tax-free growth is amazing, but that's not the only trick this magic log has up its sleeve. Let's dig into 5 other irresistible perks that make this one of the most popular savings tools around. Okay, let's run through these real quick. Number 1, we've already covered, tax-free growth. Number 2, you are the boss. You get to choose exactly how your money is invested. Number 3, there's no forced snacking. Unlike some other accounts, you are never required to take money out when you hit a certain age. Number 4, it's an incredible gift for your family who can inherit it tax-free. And number 5, and this one is huge,
You get emergency access to your cash. This right here is a massive, often misunderstood benefit. You can pull out the money you originally put in, your own contributions, anytime you want for any reason with absolutely zero penalties or taxes. It's like a secret escape hatch that gives you incredible flexibility. Just remember, the rule is to leave the growth untouched until retirement. Now, you know the saying, with great power comes great responsibility. This magic log has a few really important rules you have to follow. You want to make sure you get all the benefits and, don't get bitten by any surprise penalties. First up is what's known as the 5-year rule. The second you put your very first leaf into any Roth IRA, a clock starts ticking. Once that account has been open for 5 full years, the magic is fully unlocked. That means any qualified withdrawals of your growth are now officially tax-free. So the big takeaway here? Get that clock started as soon as you possibly can. Next up, income limits. The magic log is designed for most raccoons, but not necessarily the super wealthy ones. In 2025, if you're a single raccoon making over 161,000 leaves, or you're married and making over 240,000, you can't put money in directly. Now, there are some sneaky backdoor methods, but that's a whole other story for another day. And here's a big rule you really have to remember. This log is meant for your retirement apples. If you try to take out the growth, not the money you put in, but the earnings, before you turn 59 and a half, you're probably going to get hit with a 10% penalty plus regular income tax. So keep your paws off the growth until it's time. Oh, and for some savers, there's this other amazing perk from the government called the Savers Credit. Seriously, if your income is below a certain level, the government might actually give you free money just for saving for retirement. Like in this example, you save 2,000 leaves and you could get a 1,000 leaf tax credit back. It's like getting a free apple just for being so responsible.
So when you boil it all down, what's the most crucial point? It's this: do not wait. Time is the most magical ingredient in this entire recipe. The earlier you start filling up that log, the more time your leaves have to grow into more leaves, and the bigger and more incredible your retirement apple feast is going to be.
And always remember, you are not alone on this journey. Learning about this stuff and planning for your future, it's a team sport. Like they say in the forest, raccoons together strong. So we'll leave you with this final thought. You now know the secret of the magic log. You know how it can help you build a future that's full of apples. The only question left is, what's the very first leaf you're going to save to get that 5-year clock started? All right, let's talk about one of the most fascinating and, honestly, one of the most dangerous things in finance, the financial bubble. And to make sense of it all, we're going to use a really simple story about some clever and very, very hungry raccoons. But first, let me ask you a question. Just think about this for a second. What if a single apple was somehow worth more than the entire tree it grew on? It sounds completely absurd, right? Well, that kind of crazy logic is exactly what takes over during a financial bubble. So, forget about complicated stock charts and economic jargon for now. To really get what's going on, we're just going to follow a simple story. It's all about raccoons, leaves, and a whole lot of apples. Okay, so let's start our story where everything is simple, logical, and makes perfect sense. In the beginning, things are exactly as they should be. A raccoon is hungry, so it buys an apple. The apple costs 1 leaf. The raccoon eats the apple. Its value is realized right then and there. The price actually reflects what the thing is for. It's simple, direct, sensible. Life is good. But then something changes. The whole point of the apples starts to shift. It's not about eating anymore. No, this is where the mania begins. All of a sudden, the price of an apple just starts taking off. And it's not because they taste any better, it's because a new idea is spreading. If you think an apple will cost more tomorrow, then you better buy more today. And look at this, the price doubles, then it's 5 leaves, then 10, and pretty soon it's 20 leaves for just 1 apple. Raccoons aren't buying apples to eat anymore. They're buying them to sell to other raccoons for more leaves. So what in the world is driving this? Well, the first big reason is something you've probably felt yourself: FOMO, fear of missing out. Every raccoon is looking at their neighbor getting rich off apples and thinking, whoa, I have got to get in on this or I'm going to be left in the dust. That fear, it's an incredibly powerful reason to buy.
no matter how high the price gets. And FOMO leads directly to the next thing, herd behavior. You know, when it seems like everyone around you is doing the same thing, it just feels like the safe, smart thing to do. It creates this powerful feedback loop. Raccoons buy, so the price goes up, which then convinces more raccoons to buy, which pushes the price up even higher. It's raccoon see, raccoon do on a massive scale. Now, if you really want to pour gasoline on the speculative fire and turn it into an absolute inferno, you add one very special ingredient: borrowed money. Let's talk about the danger of leverage. So, picture this. A raccoon wants to buy 100 leaves worth of apples, but he only has 10 leaves himself. No problem. The raccoon bank is more than happy to lend him the other 90. Our raccoon is now leveraged. He's controlling a huge stack of apples with very little of his own skin in the game. And this right here, this is the truly terrifying part about leverage. Look at the upside. If the price of apples goes up just 10%, our raccoon doubles his money. He's a genius. But, and this is a huge but, look at the other side. If the price goes down by just 10%, he's completely wiped out. All 10 of his leaves are gone. Poof. And the worst part, he still owes the bank 90 leaves. A tiny little wiggle in the market can cause total disaster. As you can probably guess, a party like this can't go on forever. Every single bubble has a breaking point, and that point is usually followed by a very sharp, very painful snapback to reality. At the absolute peak of the madness, a single apple, yep, the same one that used to cost 1 leaf, is now selling for 100 leaves. 100! The price is completely, totally disconnected from what an apple actually is. It's not food anymore, it's just a ticket in some crazy lottery. And then a simple, almost dangerous thought pops into one raccoon's head. He looks at his pile of incredibly expensive and, let's not forget, perishable assets, and he asks a really basic question. What is an apple really for? And that's it. That's the moment the spell breaks. One raccoon suddenly realizes, wait a minute, these things just grow on trees. This isn't some magic leaf-making machine. An apple is just an apple. Panic spreads like wildfire. The same raccoons who were desperate to buy are now 1,000 times more desperate to sell. The price just nosedives, from 100 leaves down to 50, then to 10, until it finally crashes way below its original value, ending up at just half a leaf. The bubble has popped. So, how can we actually learn from our furry friend's big mistake? Well, this whole story gives us a pretty good guide for how to spot the next bubble before it gets out of hand. See, in the real world, bubbles can be a little more complex. We're told to watch out for the smart raccoon. You know, that hot new thing that looks like a genius, but might just be getting propped up by outside forces. It might look rich only because some big apple company is secretly feeding it leaves to make it look successful. Appearances can be really deceiving. Okay, so here are the 3 big signs of a bubble to really watch out for. Number 1, your neighbors are suddenly getting rich with what seems like very little effort. Think about your dentist giving you stock tips in the late 90s. Number 2, tons of people are borrowing a lot of money to buy the exact same thing, like we saw with mortgages before 2008. And number 3, you start to hear the most dangerous phrase in investing. This time it's different, which is just another way of saying apples can only go up. You know, the biggest lesson from our raccoon friends is to just remember the fundamental value of a thing. Bubbles happen when we completely forget what something is for and we focus only on what we can sell it for. So the next time you see a frenzy building up, just ask yourself, is this apple for trading or is it for eating? Understanding that difference, well, it might just save you from the next big bubble.